Hi, today is day 2 of Parliament's monsoon session. It's unusual, only 18 sittings, social distancing, no mics in seating areas, class separators, and mass testing in which at least 25 MPs have already tested positive and been isolated. So it is the new normal. But there are more than just the logistical changes. Yesterday on day 1, the Parliament adopted the decision not to have question hour. It's the daily period in both houses when MPs ask questions directly to ministers and hold the government accountable for whatever that's worth. Now, this is the first time that question hour will not happen in 70 years. The opposition understandably hasn't been happy about this. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, who has had a decent relationship with the opposition, came to defend the government's decision. He said question hour is going to mean presence of aides, so minister can answer questions, and that means more people, which is a bad idea in a pandemic. Now, who can fault with that? But remember, aides can also be made to sit elsewhere. There can be hybrid question hours where aides help the ministers out virtually. So there are workarounds to this. The opposition kept pushing back, and the result, there has been a compromise. Now, unstarred questions are permitted. This means that MPs can submit written questions to ministers and get answers in writing rather than in the House. This is how the Ministry of Labour had to put on record that no data was available on deaths of migrants during the lockdown. Now, 0 hour, this is when some time is set aside for members to raise issues of national importance. That's going to be limited to 30 minutes per day for the monsoon session. There are also going to be no fixed days for private member bills. Now, these are proposed laws that don't have the government's backing. So the question is, what is going to be discussed exactly in these very restricting constraints during the monsoon session? Well, I have to say the government does have a very ambitious plan. There are going to be 18 sittings. So in consecutive days, the government wants to pass 17 bills. Some of these are 17 bills that are actually been pending from earlier sessions. Remember, 6 of these have been examined by a parliamentary committee, the rest have not. The government's also going to introduce 23 new proposed laws. 11 of these are ordinances promulgated in the interim period between the last session and this one. And since all ordinances must be passed into law within 6 months of their promulgation, they are of course top of the list for the government. These include the 3 laws aimed to liberalize agricultural markets against which farmers in Punjab and Haryana have come out and protested. Their concerns are that this is going to erode the minimum support price regime, or the MSP regime, that guarantees a certain price for a basket of crops that are procured by the government. In fact, these protests have been significant enough for the BJP's ally, the Shiromani Akali Dal, to ask for a deferment as well. There is a 4th ordinance as well up for approval, and that's the Banking Regulation Bill, which seeks to bring cooperative banks under the centre with the Reserve Bank of India as the regulator. The Congress is arguing that this ordinance centralizes power at the cost of state governments, and it's planning to oppose it in this session. There are also supplementary demands for grants that need approval, since the government is obviously going to spend more this year than mentioned in the budget to mitigate the impact of COVID-19. So a pandemic, a delayed monsoon session, restricted strength, restricted time for discussion, use of ordinances not for emergencies, and of course that majority. Well, this could end up being a parliament session where the government gets a lot of the job done. Whether parliament itself is somewhat reduced to a perfunctory process, let's give it some more time. I'm Anubha Bhonsle. This is Newsworthy. Thank you for your time.